Anderson, Executive Director here. Thank you for giving up what's turning into a lovely Saturday afternoon. But thank you, Alysa, for coming and talking to us this afternoon about your work. We're all very excited to hear about it. Mila will introduce our artist. I just want to welcome you to AVA Gallery. And after the talk, remind you that there's several other artists on display here in this gallery. Ting Zhou, a Chinese artist, is in our members gallery. And we have a portrait artist of people and puppy dogs upstairs in the library. That is a lot of fun to look at. So without further ado, Mila Pinnigan is our exhibition manager and puts all this together. Mila will introduce our artist.
Hi, everybody. So I just want to let you know that it's been such a pleasure to work with Alysa Bennett on this show. Her work is extraordinary, and you walk into this room and it just really feels like it's full of magic. It has something about it that just touches, I think, something almost childlike in you, you know, that just makes you smile and wonder, and you can't help but go up close and investigate more. She received her Bachelor's of Fine Arts from Boston University and an MFA from the University of Pennsylvania. She's had 20 solo shows in Boston, Philadelphia, New York, Phoenix, and now Lebanon, New Hampshire. And we're so pleased to have you here, Lisa, and thank you so much for your time, and can't wait to hear more about your work. Come on up. Thank you.
Lovely to see you all. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Familiar faces, unfamiliar faces. Wonderful. Thanks to the AVA Gallery for doing this, especially to Mila, who, because we tried to set this whole thing up. Beautiful eye for where things go, and very nicely done. And of course to Trip Anderson, who runs this whole establishment, and wonderfully so. So thank you. Thank you, Trip. A friend of mine suggested that I open the talk with some of the questions, the most asked questions when people come into this show or any of the shows. And the first one is usually, do you have horses? That's the first one. And the second one is, where did you get the idea to use feathers for your horses? And then, of course, where are the feathers from, and how did you make those sculptures? Anyway, if I've missed any questions, we'll do some questions at the end. You can ask whatever you want. I'll try to answer. So I guess first I'll just give you a little bit of history. The answer to the first question, do I have any horses? Well, I've had horses basically all my life, on and off. Starting when I was a child, my father is a rancher in California, and I grew up out there, and my summers just riding the summer away. And I think kids especially can form an amazingly intimate relationship with horses because they're fearless around them. You know, we would crawl all over the horses, underneath them, and, you know, braid their manes, try to make these old mares look like they were, you know, beautiful Arabians and stuff like that. But it just gave you didn't even know you were learning, but something was coming into you, you know, that you knew how the withers felt and how the belly felt and how the back felt, and also how the hair, you know, would move with the muscle, which was something I didn't know I was learning, but it's really there. But I didn't, you know, after that, as I grew up, came to the East Coast and went to school. Had my family, wonderful, in Philadelphia. But then in the 90s, my dad bought another ranch, this time in southern Arizona. And I went out to see it, and I just instantly fell in love with the landscape. I don't know, I can't explain it any better than that. It was just this incredible open space. And there were a lot of horses there, which we needed to work with. They were good working horses, and they were everywhere. So when I went out to help, you know, we would ride all day long, and then I'd try to paint in the afternoons. But I was sketching them a lot because the corral was right there. Or sometimes they would get out of the gate and come up onto the lawn, you know, from the house, which was very nice of them to do. And you know, you're constantly with them. You constantly the smell. You're grooming them again. You're moving your hand over the shape of the horse. And I just remember one night going out and I would go out in them on a moonlight night to the corrals and go into the corrals, and all the horses became the same color because the night took away their color, and they would just come, you know, they just come around you, and they're with their muzzles and kind of, I don't know, I just loved that light where they became sort of a more universal horses rather than the individuals. And eventually my father did turn the ranch over to me and became pretty well immersed with horses and they came and went. The photographs, actually, those two photographs over there are the corrals at the ranch. You get kind of an idea of the landscape. But anyway, it's been a long love affair and with horses. It's a lifelong one. The second to talk about is feathers. Where did you get the idea for feathers? Well, step back a little bit, and my first attempt at sculpture was of horses, and they were made out of straw, which I thought was sort of amusing. Not that horses eat straw, they eat hay, but it was something that, I don't know, I just kind of like that connection. But I started off using straw to define a horse on a two-dimensional space, and then they kind of came off the wall, and I started making them in three-dimensional. Never studied sculpture. And just so really had to figure it out on my own from sort of the ground up what was going to work. Anyway, I did love working with that, but I don't know, I made, some of them I made were like this big, you know, and that's how the sticks came out to be used as the legs too, was with those horses. So then one day, so this is where the feathers came from. One day I was at a show in Columbus Circle in New York, Museum of Design, I think that's what it's called. And I walked in and there was this enormous sculpture. It was completely abstract, but it was of this very sensuous, flowing shape. And it was constructed completely out of feathers. And the feathers were following, the way she had the feathers set, they were following this shape. And just, aha, you know, wow, I want to try that. As I really think that could work with the horses. And so I started tracking down pigeon feathers. There was a place in New York City that just sells feathers. And, they had the pigeon feathers. And the first horse I made with the feathers, I actually put over one of my straw horses. So I covered the straw horse with the plaster wrap and then put the feathers on top. So he was a double layered horse. I mean, you couldn't tell. It was just the feathers were on there. And I just really think, I mean, just to take a minute, you know, that how the feathers can fold themselves, you know, around the shapes. And feathers also come left directed and right directed, depending on what side of the bird they're on. So you can use that, you know, like this is all like left directed feathers, and then you can get some right directed feathers that come around here, and it really helps you make you're not fighting against the form, you're working with it, I guess. And I just sensuousness, basically, of that. And it's one feather at a time, by the way. They are glued on one at a time. They take quite a long time to make, but I just enjoy them very much. Let's see, to go back just a little bit, talk maybe a little bit about the drawings too. When I went to Boston University, it was a very old school. It was like an academy. And we drew constantly. And when you were done drawing, you had to draw again. It was just drawing and drawing and drawing and drawing, getting it right, getting the form right, setting it in space, and there was no wiggle room there. But I think it's one of the finest things I learned. It's a tool that I've been able to use, for the rest of my life. Let's see what. Moving from life to, just making these forms. But the important part, really, to me, when I started doing the drawings, which actually came after I was doing the straw, because a friend of mine said you should draw from your straw sculpture instead of from a live horse, to sort of remove yourself just enough to allow something else to come out, so you're not drawing exactly what you see. And that's how all these sort of chaos of lines came about, because I was working with the chaos of straw all over the floor, and then bringing it together and forming a horse. And the same started to happen with the line. I just one line and the next line and this, and then it just would start to build itself into the horse form, kind of emerge out of the chaos of that. And what the other thing I learned, I think, from or a little bit earlier on, when I started drawing and painting my children when they were tiny, and then I started working on a series that was paintings of my children in the playground, which I saw as a parent to be a very dangerous place. And so, what I did was I started to partner the image of the child with this sense of danger. And I realized that how important it was, whatever the gesture of the child said everything about what was going on. And that's when I really started to, incorporate that idea into my work. And then I think it turned into trying to capture the gestures of the horses, how they are when they're together, how they are when they're alone, how they are when they're looking curiously at something, and or slightly askance. And that to me was very compelling. And I thought I would digress just a minute because I think everybody has that understanding of gesture. We don't always recognize it, but I know everybody knows, the Vermeer, the girl with the pearl earring, and what I think captures us all is her gesture. She's sort of a universal figure, but she's caught in this fleeting moment, and there's a mystery to it. There's some kind of maybe a little bit of a story behind it. You don't know what it is, but that's what makes that portrait or whatever, that painting, just really compelling, I think. And that always sort of stayed with me. And then, as I say, trying to capture the horses as I was able to see them very intimately. They were just always there, and they were relaxed around me, so I could, move among them or take photographs sitting on their back, and and where's this drawing? Just how the horse looks when you're riding it. So, this is my horse Calhoun, and, we'd stop and he'd look over this way, and he'd look over that way, and that's really what, you would see as you were riding. Anyway, I hope I did stay sort of true to their emotions and how they are. And I try to do that also in the sculpture, to capture them in a very natural way, the ways that I've seen all of them. So that's my inspiration for all of them. Let's see, well, I could talk about a little bit more about how they're made, if anybody's interested in that. As I say, I was not a sculpture person until very late in life. So what I devised was originally for the straw and for these, I start with just a sculpture wire, very basic shape, super simple. Try to make a sort of a rounded shape that will hold, you can put anything inside there. You can tear up old sheets, or you can put anything you want. It's just to fill it out, to form it out. Then I have an idea what pose that horse is going to be in, and then I go and try to find the legs that will work, the sticks. So all these sticks that that define the joints of the horses and how which one would move out. That's all sort of scrounging around in the backyard to find the right ones, the right size and length and everything for those. So then I attach those just with some wire. And then when it's a little bit filled out, then I just start wrapping it with plaster wrap. The kind that you did when you broke your ankle or whatever. So then they're wrapped completely in that, and that starts to fill them out. And then I also use just loose, regular plaster too, to kind of, I don't know, just fill in some of the form and make it go. And then I start putting feathers on, and one by one. I guess one of the things I learned the hard way with the feather, and it's all a hot glue. It's a hot glue so that you don't have to hold it to keep it there. Just hot glue it, and it stays. You can burn fingers a lot. I burn my fingers a lot. And one of the things I had to learn was you can't start at the top and work down. And it's what you want to do because you want to see it how it's going to be. But if you start at the top and work down, each feather is laying on top of the next one. So they're building down. So if you start up here, the next feather, then you've got to lift this feather up and put the other one underneath it. And that just is very hard. So you have to start from the bottom, and then you can start to layer with the feathers as they go up. And what else do I do? And then the tails, all the tails. This has the rooster tails, rooster things on top, but the basic structure of the tails, all these tails, are goose wings, which I thought was kind of neat that a wing from a goose could form, so perfectly, really, the shape of a tail, I'd say, right? So that was a discovery that I had kind of as I went along. I originally started to try and make them just out of a lot of glued feathers together, and it just wasn't getting the shape. But some of those, they sweep out and do all kinds of nice things for the gesture. And then finding the basis for it was also good fun and a challenge sometimes. They need the basis. I mean, they'll because I can put little holes in to keep their legs from sliding. Because sometimes the weight, if they have a little bit of weight to them, because the legs are so tiny when they get to the bottom that they slip a little bit. But so we scrounge around for bases. Some of them are mesquite, but that's from Arizona too. This little guy he's made out of pheasant feathers, which I had to get from China. Turns out I got feathers from the United States a lot, but the quality wasn't good, and I stumbled on these people in China, and the quality of the feather that they sent was just wonderful. And it turns out that feathers are extremely important part of their culture. They use them a lot in ceremony, and they just seem to have a reverence for feathers. I know some of them. There's a new book out. You see that? The feathers, about a man who stole feathers from a museum that were worth $1 million, very exotic feathers. None of these are worth $1 million. So that, and then, I don't know, and then this blue horse over here, that's a blue macaw, which are those giant parrots. I guess they're the parrots. And I found this gentleman in Florida who works at a rescue place. And so the macaws, apparently, they shed feathers, all the time. So we started this nice relationship, and every time he went to the thing, he'd send me more feathers. So I was able to get enough together to do that. I'm embarrassed to say I cannot recall exactly what kind of feathers these are, but I believe it's a duck feather of a kind. But those are definitely these are a mallard feathers. These are also from China. You'd think we'd have enough mallards around here. But I had a hard, once I started it, and that's the other thing, never start a project if you don't have enough feathers. And that's what happened to me for this show. I was, waiting on feathers from China right up like 2 days before we were supposed to come. So these were difficult to work with. Because each feather is one side blue, one side brown, one side blue, one side brown. And like, how do you, how much do you cover, how much do you leave out? I wanted the iridescence. That was a fun part of those. And most of the others are, they are the pigeon feathers, all the pale, the three pale colors. Those are pigeon feathers. And then the tails, that back one there, what I call Diva. She's rearing, and she's got lots of feathers on her tail, mane. And those are rooster, fancy roosters that have those long tails. Anyway, I think that's about it from my end, but please, any questions? Want to talk about any particular piece, or how did this happen, or? Yes?
When you said you have to make sure you have enough feathers, like for that horse, are you talking like 3 pounds of feathers, or like 5
Well, I don't really do it in pounds because they don't weigh anything, but hundreds. You'd have to work. 300?
Yeah,
I would say. Because and when you get the feathers, all of them are not in good shape. So then you do have to get, both. You get 100 feathers, you may use 50 of them, or would be usable. The others would not be. So, yeah, it's been a lesson that I'm having a hard time learning. But we did. I guess the only other one that's a little different is this one, which I call a good perch. And I put this bird, I made the bird out of sticks and the feather, the horse out of feathers. That was really fun. But when you see the horses in the field, you know, out, and their whole backs would be covered with the horses. And that's exactly why. It is, you have a flat, big old open space, and the birds come up there, and they can use that to hunt from. And the horses don't mind at all. You know, they like it, I guess. I don't know if they actually pick anything off the horses. I've never seen them do that. But I have seen a symbiosis going out there between birds and horses, which is kind of another thing that led me to the feathers. And a love of birds. There's a lot of bird watching down in southern Arizona too. So I get to see birds all the time. Anyway, any other questions about it? Yes?
Do you sketch each sculpture before you start, or is it just?
Yeah, I start to think about a gesture, and then I'll just, out of memory, and then I have, you know, thousands of photographs that I've taken of the horses at the ranch. And, you know, I'll just start flipping through that, and say, well, I don't have one that's kind of like this, you know. So yes, the answer is yes. I do sketch them. And then they always change, of course.
How many of these feather sculptures have you made?
We have 7 here and 2 more, so 9, 10? Not 10. They're very time consuming.
Like, how long does it take to?
Oh, you know, a couple months. You know, it's arduous. But I like that in a way, because I like really concentrating, you know, on something when I was something that's complicated in its structure. I spent a long time up here in Vermont painting river rocks and the wonderful roots of the trees that, you know, holding on to the banks and how they wove themselves in and out. And I could get so completely gone in that, following these complicated shapes and things. So I think that's why I don't mind the hours that it takes to do it. And then they emerge, you know, which is, they do start to become like a personality, at least to me they do. They all have nicknames. Anybody? Yes?
Would you talk a little bit about AVA, sort of in personality and also
Oh, yeah.
manifested in some-
Yeah, this whole horse over here, he was been one of my main subjects for these. So if you look around, this is he's a dappled white horse with black mane. Now he's very old, this mane is turned white, but so that very, very long forelock, and he's just such an easy guy, you know. He had this ease to him, and then the long mane and the forelock really gave me something to focus on as far as drawing, because, you know, then again I got that wonderful draw. You could really, you know, go at it with the charcoal. Charcoal really is all I've used for any of the drawings. And Ahab is a wonderful personality. I've retired him to California to my brother's ranch, but he's still out there.
How old is he?
Oh boy, he's over 20 now. Yeah, he's one of these. He has almost too much chest. We called him Arnold Schwarzenegger. Just like, wow, like that. He can get around pretty well. That little horse that sits on, looks like he's sitting on top of Ahab. This is in the corrals. And that was really my main horse. That was Calhoun. And he was really smart. Ahab was a nice horse. Calhoun was a really smart horse. He could really just work the cattle, and when you rode him, he made you look good.
You didn't know what you were doing.
And this horse, this is a Palomino, just kind of a nasty son of a bitch. This guy could take you anywhere. You would go straight up a mountain like he was, a Jeep or something. If you stubborn, if you had to take out after a cow or something, or a calf, and you had to go really fast, and you're going and going and going, and there's in front of you see there's this big cactus or something, and you want to go around this way, and he wants to go around that way, and next thing you know, you're jumping over it. So you shouldn't really argue with him on stuff like that. He had a mind of his own, but he never let me down. He bucked my father off about 4 times, and I loved that because I could tell my father he's never bucked me off. Yeah, we had a lot of horses, all with different personalities, and that's also what I'm trying to capture in these. This is the Palomino again. This one here was looking at you like, don't mess. This is my girlfriend, not yours. But that's the fun part about being around horses, and I miss them. I wish I could be around them again. Life changes, and now I just make feathered horses instead.
You're still around with them.
Yeah. Yes?
This isn't a question, it's just an observation. Your love of horses and your understanding of them, that sort of merging, it's so apparent in your work. I just love it.
Oh, well, thank you.
It just comes through.
That's the nicest compliment I could have. Thank you very much. It really is. That's what I try to do.
It almost makes me want to cry. I think it's beautiful.
Thank you. I guess is that everybody? Any more? Questions? All right. I guess.
Well, thank you so much.